Hello, everyone. Welcome to this very exciting panel, Ingredients of a Successful AI Implementation. We're looking into best practices and learnings from the past challenges. We have such an amazing panel. I'm very excited about this. I would like to get started by asking our panel to introduce themselves. Liselotte, would you like to say a few words about yourself?
Yes, hello. I'm Liselotte Johansson. I'm the CEO of the company Greater Than. We are an Insurtech company providing AI risk insight for drivers. And so what we're working most with insurance company and automotive. So we have such customers like Zurich, MSIG, and Toyota. And what our AI can do is understand and give a value, and if you drive in a risky way, and our customer uses to do pricing of the insurance, and they also do it for customer retention. So the background of the company is actually we have worked with AI for more or less 15 years, so we have long experience. My experience comes from developing insurance products and also from automotive information systems.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Henrik, would you like to go next?
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here. So my name is Henrik Allert, and I'm representing a company called Italo. Italo is an Insurtech company, business-to-business Insurtech, delivering software solutions, enterprise application, digital solutions to the life and pension industry. We have a really solid product platform that we offer to the Nordic life and pension industry.
Brilliant. Marcus?
Hello, my name is Marcus Jernback. I'm the CEO and founder of Insurello. We're basically an Insurtech startup helping people to get fairly compensated. So we basically take 25% if we succeed, and otherwise it's for free. And our core process is basically from A to Z, try to automate as much as possible, and preferably with help of AI.
Very exciting. Last but not least, Matthias?
Yes, hi guys. My name is Matthias Fras. I'm leading the AI strategy work and implementation work in Nordea. My background is in management consulting for many years, and then I have spent a few years as a CFO of the Swedish life and pension company in Nordea. And then now, since 6 years or so, I've been heading our work related to AI and machine learning in the bank, both more strategically as well as supporting a portfolio of initiatives that we're working on.
Super, very, very good. This is such a fantastic panel, so let's just start diving into the topics. Marcus, I have the information that Insurello is kind of giving its first steps when it comes to this AI journey. I would like you to share a little bit your experience this far, but above all, how have you identified the problems that you want to deal with AI?
Yeah, cool. So we basically, I think it's super important to first identify what the problem is to know the best kind of solution, how to solve it. And I think from the get-go, when we started up, so we're helping people get fairly compensation for personal accidents. And one test we did with 2 former claims adjusters were actually getting their input on 2 different kind of cases. And both of them have different kind of outputs, different values. So it's very interesting with 2 people that are experts still get this different kind of output. So we realized, okay, we're not making a data-driven, solutions, or not to the extent that is necessary in the insurance industry. So we basically see like this is a perfect fit for data-driven solutions and even AI that can optimize and learn as we go along. So our kind of vision is fair compensation to all, and we kind of identified then that it's not possible to make that happen without making data-driven solutions and even AI to kind of optimize and remove biases from when it's done manually. That's the background.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Henrik, I know that you're also very passionate about the idea that AI is not for everything, and I wanted to build a little bit on our previous keynote, Severin Bach, and the kind of insights that he brought up. How do you feel about this idea of AI as a buzzword, and everyone is doing AI now, and this is how things should be done?
I mean, it's cool to be participating in this panel where a few of those panelists are working with true AI, meaning sort of machine learning. Because a big fuss in the industry, I think, is that many are using the phrase AI very, very freely, so to speak. And I will get back to a bit what Marcus said, that I mean, of course, AI could be a fantastic technology, but I think the really important piece in this is to start with the business case and how technology in general could add value. Because absolutely, there are definitely use cases where AI can add fantastic value. But I think each company needs to do sort of a really deep dive investigation in terms of see where AI could potentially fit into their business, because I mean AI is not for everyone, and it's definitely not for each use case. But I think that going back to Severin's keynote presentation, I think this is a sort of maturity step for the industry. That the industry is becoming much more data-centric and data-driven, and utilizing the power of data could be done in different ways, from smart business rule to algorithms to the end state of really smart AI and machine learning for the really advanced. But I think there is a step-by-step sort of learning exercise in this that the industry needs to forego.
Absolutely. And talking
AI could be fantastic, but it's not for everyone, I think, and it's definitely not for every use case.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about redesigning the industry with AI, Liselotte, you were saying in your presentation, Greater Than has been using AI for quite a long time, comparing to a lot of other use cases. Do you want to share with us the beginning of that journey, and what have you learned this far?
Yeah, what I have learned is, I would say, I mean, AI is a very, very good tool for insurance industry, because it is really powerful with the data and how they can develop and increase their revenue stream to be much better. So our background is that we help auto insurance to help them to be more profitable, with understanding the risk in a totally new way. I mean, they are super good to calculate with historical data, but on the top of that, we can help them to understand with real-time data how it looks now and also in future, not right now, also understand in future. And that is the power of our AI. And if we take to compare how powerful our AI is, that our AI are equal to 1.8 million of actuaries. And our AI work 24/7, and all the brain power is in one place. So it have a really, really huge knowledge. So what we help our customer with is to understand the risk, so they can do the pricing of the insurance in a better way. So what we have learned and what we see from our calculation is that 20% of the customer costs 80% of the claims cost. And when we can identify this 20% of customers, there are much actions to be done. Of course, we can change the pricing, but we can also take other actions. And what we can see from our use case is that we have use cases that have reduced number of road accidents with 40%. 40% is enormous. But the positive thing is, when you drive safer, you drive more energy efficient. So we also see our customers in average reduce the CO2 emissions with 20%. And on top of that, it's good feeling for the whole society, because you also get more friendly when you're not as stressed and when you drive reckless. So, for me, AI is a powerful tool, very interesting technology, but it also gives something back to our customer and their end users.
Yeah, Absolutely, absolutely. And picking up on something that you said there, quite interesting, this idea of the predictability or looking into the future. I'm thinking about, Matthias, a conversation that we had around what is happening in the world right now with the COVID-19 pandemic and how that has been um, forcing businesses maybe to shift a bit their perspective on looking into the future. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think that the pandemic will accelerate the need for better real-time granular data to be able to forecast risks of companies or individuals in a better way. Since we know that this pandemic is affecting different companies or people in different ways, even companies within the same industries. So I think it's more about data than the AI itself, but I think, of course, AI feeds on the data. But the ability to be even more forward-looking in your predictions, I think, will that need will increase or is increasing now on the back of this.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that the industry is ready? Maybe a bit of a provocative question here.
Ready
What
for
do you
AI
need?
or
Yeah, ready for this transformation, thinking more about the future rather than kind of using past data. What are the implications for incumbent businesses to have that shift?
Yeah, I mean it's there are many dimensions to that question, I think, and the previous speakers have touched upon them already. For example, which problem should you pick and focus and try to solve? There's so many different problems you can try to solve with data and machine learning. So I think one almost competitive advantage of an incumbent company will be who is better at picking the right problems to solve. And that is more about the people and the culture and the problem solving skills and so on than it is about the technology, which I think is an interesting situation now where everybody has more or less access to the same technology, but how do you leverage that technology and how do you skill your people to make the most out of it? I think that's we are kind of competing on the rate of learning now rather than anything else. I would say.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Liselotte, do you feel that you're learning a lot at Greater Than? And do you feel that maybe your partners in the industry, are they learning a lot also?
Yeah, but I will add to what Matthias said there. I mean, for the COVID-19, it has really accelerated the industry. And I have the feeling that if not the industry go there, or the company that not going in this direction, I'm not sure they will be us in future, because I see this as like we have steam power earlier and no one really believed in electricity. But I think like AI is the electricity. That's something that, I mean, if you should success, you need to go there. And we see the power with our customer. I mean, with our technology, they get new customers because there are new requirements on the market. For example, in auto insurance, the new mobility solutions require new insurance solutions, and they don't have any historical data how they can start to do the pricing. And with us, they can take this business on board. And with AI, they also can understand which is a good customer, so they can keep the good customers. And that is also one important thing for them to get stronger on a really competitive market. I mean, if you look to Scandinavia, the insurance industry is quite healthy, but if you go for Asia and US and other areas, they are much more challenging for them when it comes to the auto insurance.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Very good point. I think that we're having an amazing discussion here, and I really want us to go back to it. But I was also thinking about, okay, what are the practical challenges of doing this? Kind of, where do you start? Marcus, I would like to ask you, you're in the starting phase of AI development. What are you doing right now? What what are the first steps?
Great question. I think for us it's super important to have a clear structure from the get-go. So like the main goal that we have is then create more fairly compensation for everyone. And basically, how can we measure that that gets done? I mean, but basically setting up different KPIs, whether it's the two different customers should get the fair compensation as before, whatever it might be. Third step is basically then collecting all the data that is necessary, because if you're supposed to build good AI, you need good data and structured data. And we're basically at the next step, which is then the fourth step, the team. So we have a good, great, diversified team in place. We can start with these kind of pre-processing things with anonymization of data, and kind of make our algorithm more efficient. But we're really in the starting phase. But what's really interesting is that once we kind of have goal, KPI, data, and team in place, we can kind of start to implement this and train this and making it better for the future. I mean, going back to what we want to solve, and to Henrik's question as well, we want to solve fair compensation to all. And for us, that is through AI in this specific example.
Absolutely. That's a very good structure, I think, very useful. I want to pick up on one of those aspects, the data aspect. Henrik, I know that you're also very interested when it comes to the importance of reliable data that is uniform. And if I'm not mistaken, you even had a specific master project around it. Would you like to share the insights and your experience around this?
Yeah, sure. Was actually two questions there, right? But we start with the master thesis. Yes, we have elaborated a bit with AI ourselves. We conducted a master thesis together with a data scientist from KTH a few years ago on the topic of see if we could use neural networks to calculate life expectancy on par or even better with the sort of the traditional statistical models that are currently used. And we did that with this amazing, bright data scientists together with a bunch of people from our end with domain expertise and knowledge about our data. And it was really valuable and a good learning exercise for us. But I think, again, there, going back to your second questions, is so much about the accessibility of reliable quality data. And being a sort of provider of sort of the core application, as we are at Itello, of course, we have a lot of valuable information that we could use into this process. But a conclusion was that, yes, when we compared the neural network with the statistical models, they were more or less on par with each other. And our conclusion was to be able to get even much out of the neural network sort of modeling. We need to tap into other data assets, like more personalized data in terms of life and health. And I think that is an important sort of puzzle piece in this, that for AI to be successful, you really need access to high value quality data to be able to get something out of this process. And I think the key in that is a combination of standardized high quality core applications that can feed you high quality data into this process, but also a more open mindset, I think, for the life and pension industry, that not all relevant data that you would need to really get sort of powerful AI output out of this is within your current IT infrastructure, but you probably need to look out for partnerships to feed other kind of data into this process, from social media or from interactions, or even going outside of your current sort of ecosystem and look for lifestyle data, health data. So I think that the future for the insurance industry going forward is that to be able to compete and be successful in this very, very data-driven sort of landscape, you need to have an open mindset to be able to tap into other data assets to really be competitive and successful in this. And that is cultural sort of and business mindset aspect that I think is going to be really important going forward.
Yeah, yeah. And as you're talking about this cultural shift and changing business models, I'm thinking about the perspective of the incumbent firms. And Matthias, you have a little bit that role here today. It sounds like an incumbent firm would already be sitting on top of a lot of data. Is that true? Is that not true? Where do you think incumbent firms are nowadays when it comes to their data? And are you looking into the suggestions that Henrik made about external sources of data, lifestyle, for example?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of data. We have more transaction data on customers than any other company, maybe in the Nordics, in one sense. But we, you know, in order to have efficient systems, you need to sort of have efficient ways of sourcing the data, and that is a capability that many incumbents firms are struggling with, because we're not used to use our data in that way. So that is one challenge for us, of course. But I do think that here also the cultural aspects or the mindset comes in, because what data do you really need for a specific use case? And we're starting to sort of have a bit of an open mind towards that, because it could mean that you can get data out there from the ecosystem rather than to have to use all the data that we have ourselves. It might be easier. It might also make more sense. So I think it doesn't really matter where the data come from, in a sense. It's a matter of having the right data and making sure you feed that to your systems. So definitely, I think all companies are looking to other sources now, also for their models. But we of course have lots of internal data that we also use.
Mm-hmm. And talking about data and building on this idea of the ecosystem and working closely with your customers or suppliers, etc. Liselott, I want to go back to something that you were mentioning previously, this idea that Greater Than was really developing its algorithms very closely connected with the customers and kind of validating the data all the way through. I would, could you say a few more words about that journey in terms of where you got the data from and the process of validating it? Do you have any good tips on how to do that?
Yeah, actually, when we started 15 years ago, I mean, it was really challenged maybe to connect vehicles, but we connected already 15 years ago our customer, and the data was fed into our systems, and our brilliant creator of our AI, he had regular contact with the end user, actually the driver who was driving the vehicles. So he started to learn to understand them, and they explained, he could call them and he said, oh, I experienced that this is a situation you have been into. And they say, yeah, actually has been like that. So he had very close relation with them. And we learned also that to have this proof give us also a lot of good stories to share from the experience, what our AI say and also what end users say. So it was like we combined these good stories in one. So that was a very good proof of our AI. And I mean, that was very, very early. It was the first years of our AI when it was developed. We have this relation direct with the end users. And at the same time, we report to the company like more in a larger scale the result. But on the journey now, when we work with the customer, I mean, our AI is so well trained, and we can send a report and we know that the customer will confirm, yes, the result from your AI that you said that would happen in the next year, it really happened. And that is really strong. We have many of these use cases. But for sure, it's a challenge when it comes to communicate to someone that is used to calculate the risk, based on historic data. Now we should calculate in a new way, and we can tell them what is the result the next coming year. It's a bit hard to communicate. That is also have been a challenge for us to learn how to do that. But yeah, for sure, it's very, very good to have this many customer cases we have to when we should do the sales work for new clients.
This is super interesting, and you were giving examples of confirmation of the data of what the algorithm said, and I will not ask you for situations where this did not happen, but I will kind of shift a bit the other way around, looking into the ethical implications of shifting one's behavior. I mean, this technology can be used for amazing things, but it also has definitely challenges in its implication. And I'm thinking of particularly when it comes to the responsibility of some of these decisions. Who takes responsibility for them? If the algorithm makes a suggestion, a decision, how can we say, yeah, who is the person or the entity that has agency over that decision? I'm thinking, for example, you know, everyone is talking about for quite a long time self-driving cars, and then there's an accident, someone gets killed. Whose fault is that? Who pays the insurance in that situation? I know that you're very interested also when it comes to the ethical aspects of AI. Do you want to elaborate a little bit about this topic?
Yes, for sure. What I think is when we come especially to auto insurance, it's a very, very good product to work with when it comes to AI and the way we do it is because today, if you look for how the insurance company work today, actually they work with historic data for a huge population, and actually the good drivers are more like less help the bad drivers to get a better premium because it's pool price. So with the way we do it is that we can identify the one that not driving that good, that are really high risk. And I don't see any problem really to identify the one with high risk, because actually they are the one who causing 80% of the accidents on the road. They are the one who be in the accident, the people can be injured, killed, and so on. And it's not difficult to drive in a safe way. The way to drive safe is to be focused, and everybody can do it. So when it comes to ethics in this way, I think it's more unethic to have it in the way we have it today. And I think the reason why insurance companies have it as they have today is because they haven't early been able to access this new knowledge or this data that is available today. So I think when it comes to ethics in auto insurance is quite easy because we save life, we save money, and we also save environment. So it's so many good things for society. But for sure, you need to always be very, very careful when you handle this lot of data. And for us, it has been like the base from the company grounded. So we think it's you should be careful and you should use the AI for good things. And that is how we focus in Greater Than.
Absolutely. Matthias, what's your perspective on the ethical challenges of implementing AI, also from an incumbent perspective? The reputational damages to a big brand are quite different. The implications are different, stakeholder management, etc. What are your thoughts on these challenges?
I think this is a big topic, and I think maybe one of the most popular topics at this moment. We see a lot of institutions such as World Economic Forum and European Union, and you see a lot of people talking about it, and there's starting to be some principles and guidelines coming out more and more. And I think especially in the Nordics, we are very very ethical in the culture. So I think here it's a bigger thing than also maybe in other parts of the country, of the world. And we've seen some accidents or incidents like the Apple Card a year and a half ago, and other things. And to me, it's a lot about the trust. It's a lot about creating trust in AI. I mean, AI is somewhat a distraction right now, you know, because it means so many things, and it's a big hype and all that. But it's really about then, you know, building the trust, not having sort of blind distrust, and not having, you know, happy-go-lucky attitude, but really know what you're doing, and maybe, you know, really know how to, you know, how these underlying systems work, and in the context of a specific application, such as a KYC or a credit score, are you able to explain, you know, well enough, you know, why that output was the case? But then you also need to have control mechanisms to make sure that you don't violate you know, ethical standards of your company, as well as the compliance and you know, business requirements and all that stuff. And I think the good thing is that I think AI really sort of exposes the ethical aspects of how we do business, which is good, because which I think because it's a good thing. But we also need to then be able to manage that, and just because we can do it, should we do it, you know, given our, you know, core values and our ethical standards. And I think that there will be more and more focus on that, and there will be more and more people, you know, working on those kind of problems. And we see more and more AI platforms having sort of built-in ethical control frameworks, and we have that as well as in our, you know, model lifecycle now. From the start of a use case, you know, you consider these ethical aspects of the process, and both in the data ethical aspects as well as the model ethical aspects. So it's a big thing, and it's a new capability for many, and it's an important one.
Super, very interesting. We're running out of time, but I know that Henrik, when it comes to AI and ethical implications, it's also your topic of passion. Would you like to share a few short comments?
Yeah,
before
sure.
we go into the closing remarks?
Yeah, I think that the journey that Greater and Liselott has done is sort of amazing, because they have granted access to a huge amount of relevant information from the customers, and they've done it with the trust of the customers, because the customer has earned the privilege of using that data. And I think that's an amazing testimonial that they're doing the right stuff. If you're doing the parallel with the life and pension, it's a bit more sensitive, because optimizing the risk of driving is one thing, but optimizing the lifestyle is a totally different thing, because you can then use the ethical aspects of optimizing the life of someone. So the pricing is sort of equivalent to all the risks that you take in your life. So you should get a higher premium if you don't live up to the 10,000 steps a day, if you have sort of an unhealthy way of eating, etc. So there are a number of implications from the privacy and integrity side when it comes to life and pension that needs to be balanced as well. And I think the proactive way of utilizing information and giving proactive, preventive recommendations, that is one thing that is a bit more neutral than having all the risks sort of embedded into the pricing model. So using preventive measures, I think is a way forward to mitigate this.
Yeah, very good point. I would like to ask you now to just, we'll go on a little round of closing remarks. If you could just say, you know, one aspect that you'd really like to highlight when it comes to AI implementation, and if you have a tip or a recommendation, if you would travel back in time and you would want to tell something to your younger self about what you have learned this far. Liselott, do you want to start?
Yeah, I would say it's so easy to think about the technology, and for sure you should have the target, the KPIs, that is for sure you should have there. But also start from beginning to think about how you can communicate your AI. Because even if you have the AI, it works brilliant, you get cases, it's sometimes challenged to communicate it. And yeah, to learn how to communicate AI is something we have had the journey on, and we worked with hard. So that is something to have in mind also when you start your development. How should we communicate it? What is the value, and how can our customer understand what we're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Very good point. Henrik, would you like to go next?
Well, I think my final word is that I think there is a huge opportunity for this industry to become more data-centric and much more data-oriented and data-driven. And I think AI is definitely one super interesting tooling in this. But I think that the industry should look sort of holistically in this and use the relevant tools in the toolbox for the relevant use case. So really don't go for the technology, but really do the homework to come up with a good business case and use case, and then go for the most appropriate tooling. And definitely AI can be a fantastic opportunity in that, but it's one of many tooling. But the data-centric, data-oriented organization for the future, that is a must to be competitive tomorrow.
Absolutely. Very good. Marcus, what are your closing remarks, your tips?
Yeah, I would continue on that, like using AI when relevant. Like for us, for example, with Israel, like we shouldn't do AI when we not have sufficient data or collect it in the right way or structure or anonymized way. But now when we're kind of getting there, I mean, it makes it a lot easier, makes it better predictability. So really start thinking, data and AI from day one, but develop it when it makes sense to solve the problem.
Absolutely. And if I'm allowed to just jump here, something that it really struck me when you were presenting Insurello was it seems like you have a very strong mission. So you have a very strong purpose that I feel has been guiding your decisions this far.
Definitely. And I think like as long as you have a great purpose for your company, it makes it more easy with its ethical aspects too. As long as you're trying to do good for the world, I think AI can be used in such a good way.
Absolutely. Matthias, your closing thoughts about AI implementation and recommendations on how to do this.
Yeah, I think it's, even though we talk a lot about technology, picking up on, I think, everybody's points here, it's never been more about people than now, because it's what you do with it that makes a difference, really. And we see that happening. So really focusing on trying to view AI more as a state of mind, perhaps, than a technology or a tool, because I think it's about thinking about problem solving in a different way. And think about how that can provide opportunities for you as a company is what you should do. And I make the comparison sometimes when I talk about this to the Matrix movie. You taking the red or the blue pill. I think you need to take the red pill and go down into the rabbit hole and see how it, how deep it goes and what it means to you. And then maybe in the end you see the Matrix and how what it could mean for you. Something like that. But it's really about the people. It's really about adding a new mindset, a new way about solving problems. And although AI is usually very, very small part of the problem solving, the model is usually a very, very small part, it's still the thing that makes it superpowered.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to say just a few closing words on this idea of retraining people then? I mean, there's a mindset, cultural shift. Do you have any insights on how to do this? Just just a few words if you have some gems from your experience.
No, but I think that the reskilling is everything. I think that we're now competing on the rate of learning. I think, and when you look at China, who's decided to be world dominating in AI by 2030, they are talking now about reskilling the entire population. And that's a thing on a different scale. But I think it's really a lot about reskilling people in the company to adapt this new way of thinking. And then you can have different roles. You can have a data role, you can have a compliance role, you can have any kind of role, but you need to think differently about how that role will emerge, I think.
Absolutely. Well, I really love these last thoughts about how we are all here to learn. And that sounds like a very inspiring way to finish, but also finishing with a remark to the Matrix, which is a classic. And we all like classics. Thank you so much for your time. This was such an interesting conversation. I hope that our attendees also feel the same. And looking forward to see where all your businesses and ventures will be in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.